All right, so let's get into the nutrition side of things. So there's so much power in this, and sometimes this is the side of things where people start to struggle and can overcomplicate it, and it feels overwhelming. And what I want to do is give you some really simple, basic tips that we can make it work. Hopefully that band isn't too noisy through this, but yeah, so we want to keep it simple, and that's why we've given you a meal formula to work with.
Is that a band?
Yeah, it's quite a famous band. I never remember what they're called. So yeah, that's why we want to keep it simple. You've got your meal formula there, so that it gives you options. You've got the option to go with what you feel like that day. I just find if we have this set, you have to have a particular thing at this time, it's just too overwhelming, because it's like, I have to have a boiled egg at 10 a.m. and then it's like, oh my God, I don't have any eggs in the house. Oh my God, I can't do this. I've ruined the whole thing. So we don't want that sort of association with food. It's also going by instinctually what you feel your body needs as well. Now, sometimes you'll feel that it needs sugar. We'll go into that and the reasons behind that. But yeah, we want you to use your instincts. We've given you guidelines of weights, and they're guidelines. You may feel hungry on certain days, and you may feel, you know, just for something different that day. It doesn't have to be that you're weighing your food, you've got a scales in your handbag and it's just becoming this, I've told you 140 grams and you go 141 and you've wrecked it. It's just going, okay, this is what we're encouraging your body to do. We want to boost your metabolism. We find like there's so many different options for meal frequencies and volumes, and you'll hear so many different things out there. And the reason why we choose to have it frequently throughout the day is it helps to stabilize your blood sugar, it helps to reduce sugar cravings as well, and it helps to fuel your body and to get rid of body fat. There are other options. You'll see like intermittent fasting and things like that, and then you're like, oh, maybe I should be doing that, I'm doing it wrong, and blah, blah, blah. I've done my research into it, and for 70% of women it doesn't work. So I would rather go with a percentage of something that does work. And we're different with food than guys. Like if you have this enormous period where you're not eating, and then it can just encourage binge eating and sugar cravings and all sorts of up and down things. What we want to encourage is for you to feel really stable, really good, and to get the results. It's going to be interesting. Maybe I'll dance to the music while we do this. So food planning, like everyone's busy. I haven't sat down with one single person that goes, you know what, I've got so much time to food prep, it's not even funny. This is what I want to do all day long. There may be some people that do it for work. Nicole said it, Nicole's special. Some people, it does relax them, and it does, they do enjoy it, but for most people, we're really super busy. So what we want to do is plan around that. And the reason why I put on here food prepping is for plebs, sorry Nicole, is because sometimes we see those pictures of people that have prepped their entire kitchen full of the things, and then you look at that and you're like, oh my God, I can never do that or be that, and it means that I can never have the results. And since opening this place, and it's been pretty hectic and pretty busy, I pretty much haven't prepped any food. I used to prep, but I now outsource it. So we've got some options around that. And you don't have to outsource all of it, but I think it's just knowing the places that you can go to that can build your meal formula. Because if we're really honest about it, most of the population is gluten driven. You'll go into any cafe and it's just this whole thing of gluten, and it's like, oh my God, I can't eat anything in here. And then it's like, all right, maybe if I look at the next cabinet, but that's got donuts in it, and it's like, what am I going to do here? I'll just get my long black and leave, and then you're hungry. So it's knowing those places that you can go to. And I've got a couple of go-to places around me where I'm like, oh, I haven't got food for this next meal. I know that I'm going to go past Healthy Self Cafe, I'm going to pick up a Nourish bowl, and then I'm going to go into work. And I always know, I'm always sort of thinking ahead and planning that. I also use a food company that I get food delivered twice a week. So the food company is called Natural Whole Foods, and I've got their web address on here. The pricing is really reasonable. It works out to be, I think about $11 a meal. And so what I do, and you don't have to do your entire week worth. You could do half of it just to take some of the pressure off. Or like what I do is 3 meals over 5 days, and then I'll cook dinner the rest of the days, or I'll just, I'll make the rest of the food. So it's kind of looking at, okay, what's realistic, what can you work around, and you know, how can you make it work for you? And then knowing those places around near where you work, like maybe there's a barbecue chicken place that if you made your salads for the day, that would reduce the pressure off you. You could go and grab a barbecue chicken and then you're done. Like I used to have a habit of grabbing a cucumber and just eating that whole, and then grabbing a barbecue chicken. People look at you really weird. I always say that I think these days you have to be a little bit weird to be healthy these days, because the majority of the population don't understand. They're going to question you, what are you doing, blah, blah, blah. Most of everyone's used to what I do now, but in the beginning I was so weird, and I think that's a big part of it. You have to be okay with not really pleasing everyone in your choices. They're not going to understand it, but guaranteed when they see your results, they'll be like, oh, so that thing that you were doing, they'll be coming back to you. So it's on that. I haven't really got any slides on it, but I think that it's important to volunteer the information to the people that are going to empower you, and don't talk about it to the ones that aren't, because I don't really, well, I do talk about it on Facebook everywhere, all my friends know, but I'm not really going to try and influence and change someone unless they've come to me and they genuinely want advice, and they want me to offer that advice. Otherwise, I'm not going to go up and give it. I'm not going to comment on their food, and so I expect the same sort of respect back. And so I know that, you know, some people do struggle with that concept. At the end of the day, what you're doing is for yourself, and it's giving your power away to someone else in, you know, taking on what their view is of what you're eating. At the end of the day, it's for you. So and you know, you don't get it perfect every time, and sometimes, like, you know, it's harder when it's partners, and I'm sure Rob and I have had discussions over this. I'll cut that bit out of the video, but yeah, it's talking to the people that you know are going to support you, and you know, don't get involved in an argument that isn't going to end well about food. That's my advice. So work with your meal formula. When in doubt, go back to that formula and see how you can build it. It's very empowering looking at what you need to move towards. So there's no point in going, how many grams of sugar am I supposed to have in my meal formula? We're moving away from sugar and we're moving towards. So have a look at what is in your meal formula. You want to hit that first before anything else comes in. That's my advice, because usually you won't have your meal formula yet, but you'll get that next week. Focus on what you're moving towards. Any add-ons and little extras and things like that, try and hit it first and then do that after, because a lot of the time you can be really, really hungry, and it's like, oh, I'll just grab nuts and berries and seeds, and then you try and fill up on that, and it will go against your results. So hit that formula first, and then do the add-ons after that. Always just think of, you know, how you can upgrade your options. Just thinking about, is there a better way that I could do this? If it's you know, you're always having deli meats, for example. It's going, okay, how can I lift the quality of my food? And would it change, you know, if you're doing grass-fed quality meats and that type of thing? It's also with sugar cravings, how can you do an upgraded version of that? Because there are options around it. We all get sweet cravings. We all like that kind of stuff. So it's how can we include and how can we have balance without necessarily eating Mars bars all day. So it's just going for an upgraded version of that, and we'll go through what they are. And there's always a choice. Like I find, like I eat out a lot as well, and I can usually, like there's some types of foods that are harder to manipulate, like say an Indian restaurant or Asian food and things like that, that is a harder choice. I would probably say that, yeah, choose where you're eating out, but typically, there's always going to be something there that's going to work to the meal formula and that's going to support your goals. So reducing inflammation is the most powerful thing that we can do, and most of the time it's the most common thing that people will come in with, and it's just because of the types of food or lack of sleep, stress that will be setting off inflammation in your body. When you're inflamed, you're more likely to hold on to fluid as well. So you'll sort of feel that your skin is inflamed, you've got fluid under your skin, and it's going to make it harder for you to lose body fat. So this is why it's always the first thing that we target. And probably the biggest ace card in that is gluten. And although it's a little bit of a pain in the butt because it's like a warm hug when you have it. Everyone likes toast. Like the smell of toast is amazing. It's the number one thing that it acts like a virus in your body. And I'm going to tell you a little gluten fairy tale. It's not the nicest story, but I think it's important to understand what's happening on a cellular level so that you understand why you're changing your choices around that. So if you have that feeling like after you eat pasta or bread that you feel really, really bloated, what your body is doing is it's setting off an immune response. So it's sending cytokines in to fight what your body thinks is something that's foreign, that shouldn't be there. So you feel that bloating feeling. Then from that, over time, it can wear down the villi on the inside of your digestive system. So this is where you absorb all of your nutrients. If you wear that down completely, then that is known as celiac disease. So when you sort of reach that point, it's irreversible damage, and you don't really absorb the nutrients from your food. There's another host of issues that can come from that because you aren't getting the nutrient content from your food. Another part of that is it can encourage leaky gut syndrome. So it's a really lovely name, leaky gut. Sounds great. It is when you have food particles that getting through the lining of your stomach and it's going into your bloodstream. So that is triggering a secondary response that your body needs to fight off whatever is going around in your bloodstream. So your body doesn't know the difference between the food particle or between your thyroid or your brain or something else, and you can have a situation where your body starts attacking itself. So that's known as autoimmune disease. So any type of, there's a huge array of autoimmune diseases, and that's sort of where they originate from. So a lot of the time, if people are having other issues, it can be that it's actually started from the gut and from the types of food. So typically with most people that we work with, we do take out gluten. You can, if you're not sure about it and you're sort of questioning, oh, I think it's okay for me, we could do a muscle testing session around that. We could also, if you take it out for 2 weeks and then you go and have like a gluten fest, and then see how you feel, because what happens is your body, if it's already inflamed, it will stay in a state of inflammation, and you won't really notice the gluten. So you can eat it all the time, you're kind of like, well, it's not really setting off the bloating or doing anything like that. But when all the inflammation goes down in your stomach and then you do have gluten, usually you will notice it. And I don't think I've really worked with anyone who hasn't noticed that they feel better and that they get leaner from taking it out. So it is harder. It's probably, it's making that choice and making that decision, but it's definitely worth it. Where you put weight on with gluten is on your hips and on your stomach, and your body stays in a state of inflammation. It makes it really hard to make any progress. So that if you were just going to, if you felt that that's where you're at and you were going to just focus on one thing, that is huge, and it will change your results that you get over the next 60 days. Sometimes people ask, can you have a little bit? And unfortunately, it is the size of a pinhead of gluten that sets off a reaction in your body from 3 to 9 months, which is crazy. And it's amazing that this knowledge isn't really out there. It's not mainstream knowledge. And a big thing of opening this place was to be able to bring that knowledge to you guys and protect you from that. So sugar and dairy come second in terms of inflammation. Dairy intolerances are probably around 85% of the population. So just to bear that in mind, we'll give you some alternatives around that. And usually you can feel if you fall into that. If not, you can always do muscle testing with us and we can see what you respond to. I've done a lot of testing with nuts and nut milk, and unfortunately a high amount of people are intolerant to nuts. So it's one of those things to bear in mind. I probably, of the nuts that I've tested, the most common ones that come back okay is almonds if they've got the skin off, because the phytic acid is found in the skin. Macadamia nuts, don't ask me why, but that just seems to clear on a lot of people. And they're probably the main two. But if you wanted to do the testing, you could book that in with me to find out. And then because nuts set that off, then nut milks will also set that off. And it's one of those things, like food can either be your best friend or it can make you feel really, really crappy. So it's just working out what it is for you. And it's one of those things, it's like I didn't write the rules. It is challenging at times, but it's also going, okay, well, that is what it is. I'm gonna focus on what I can have and move towards those things. Like I always find that people respond better to including seeds and things like that. So, sometimes I was like, I felt bad giving this information, but then I think there is so much